Good morning, 8th grade. I am going to be recording a series of videos in which I read Act 3 of Henry V for you, and I am hopeful that, as you have requested, that it will be something that benefits you and helps you learn how to read Shakespeare. Let me turn off my notifications really quickly so we won't have to hear that dinging throughout the reading. All right, I'm going to start on page 83. You should have your books and be reading along with me. This always begins with a chorus or a prologue, and this time it's called a chorus. Here we go. Thus, with imagined wing, our swift scene flies in motion of no less celerity, which is speed, than that of thought. So no more speed than thought. No less speed than thought. So very quickly. Suppose that you have seen the well-appointed king at Dover pier embark his royalty and his brave fleet with silken streamers, the young Phoebus fanning. He's like Phoebus, he's so godlike. Play with your fancies, and in them behold upon the hempen tackle shipboys climbing. Hear the shrill whistle which doth order give to sounds confused. Behold the threatened sails, borne with the invisible and creeping wind. Draw the huge bottoms through the furrowed sea, breasting the lofty surge. Oh, do but think that you stand upon the rivage, which is the shore, and behold a city on the inconstant billows dancing, for so appears this fleet majestical, holding due course to Harfleur. So this, when Henry launches his fleet with his army on board, it looks like a city on the waves as it comes across the English Channel. So remember that. It looks like a city on the waves. And they are headed to the city of Harfleur in France. Very important information here. Follow, again in your mind. Grapple your minds to sternage of this navy, and leave your England as dead midnight still, guarded with grandsires, grandfathers, babies, and old women, either past or not arrived to pith and puissance, which is the ability to fight. For who is he whose chin is but enriched with one appearing hair that will not follow these culled and choice-drawn cavaliers to France? So Shakespeare saying that if you had but one hair on your chinny chin chin, so just barely into puberty, then everything in you as a man would want to go to this war. Work your thoughts, and therein see a siege. So now we're at the battle location. Behold the ordnance on their carriages, with fatal mouths gaping on girded Harfleur. Suppose the ambassador from the French comes back. So remember, Exeter went to see the King of France and ask him if he would surrender and surrender the crown. And so Exeter comes back and tells Harry that the king doth offer him Catherine, his daughter, and with her, for dowry, some petty and unprofitable dukedoms. The offer likes not, and the nimble gunner with linstock now the devilish cannon touches. So Exeter came back. The King of France offered his daughter and some small dukedoms, which Henry wouldn't find important. No one would find important. And so Henry says, thank you, but no thank you. I don't want your daughter and a little bit of property instead of the entire country of France. So the other is Henry, likes it not, and the nimble gunner with linstock now the devilish cannon touches. So now we've started the siege, and we've started setting off cannons, and down goes all before them. Still, be kind and eke out our performance with your mind. So remember, you're making all this up in your mind because this is the chorus and it's not being acted out for you. But the chorus is giving you a preparation for this act. So in scene 1, we are at Harfleur. King Henry says, once more unto the breach, dear friends, once more. This is one of the most famous lines in all of Shakespeare, but definitely in this play. So remember, you will hear this line in other situations. I heard it in an advertisement last year. Can't remember what it was for, but once more unto the breach. And the breach is a hole that is made in the walls of the city by a cannon. And so that is the meaning of this. The cannons have prepped the city for the men to invade, and that is what Henry is saying. The fighting is going to be hottest there. Of course, the French are going to be defending those holes in the wall, and Henry wants to attack them because they are also the most vulnerable places. So, once more unto the breach, dear friends, once more, or close up the wall with our English dead. So we're either going to win and push through, or else we're just going to fill that hole with all of our dead. In peace, there is nothing so becomes a man as modest stillness and humility. But when the blast of the horn of war blows in our ears, then imitate the action of the tiger. Think eye of the tiger. Then imitate the action of the tiger, stiffen the sinews, summon up the blood, disguise fair nature with a hard favored rage. Then lend the eye a terrible aspect. Let it pry through the portage of the head like the brass cannon. Let the brow o'erwhelm it as fearfully as doth a galled rock, or hang and jutty his confounded base, swilled with the wild and wasteful ocean. Now set the teeth. Growl at him, right? And stretch the nostrils wide, heavy breathing. Hold hard the breath and bend up every spirit to his full height. On, you noblest English, whose blood is fet from fathers of war-proof, fathers that like so many Alexanders, remember Alexander conquered the entire known world, so he wants them to be like Alexander, have in these parts from morn till evening fought, and sheathed their swords for lack of argument. So only when the battle was over did they sheathe their swords. Dishonor not your mothers, so make your mothers proud. Now attest that those whom you call fathers did beget you. Be copy now to men of grosser or stronger blood, and teach them how to war. And you, good yeomen, whose limbs were made in England, show us here the mettle of your pasture. So you're from England, so you should be battle tested and worthy. Let us swear that you are worth your breeding, which I doubt not, for there is none of you so mean and base that hath not noble lustre in your eyes. I see you stand like greyhounds in the slips, straining upon the start. The game's afoot. Some of you should recognize that from other reading, right? Let me know if you remember where you've heard that. Follow your spirit, and upon this charge cry God for Harry, England, and St. George. So he's saying God help Harry, the king, right? England, the country, and St. George, who is, and this is important, it's in your vocabulary as well, the patron saint of England. That might be a very important thing to remember today. Okay, here we go. On to scene 2. We're back to our tavern crowd. Here we go. Bardolph says, on. Oh, I'm sorry. So scene 1 is all a rally cry from Henry. He is trying to pump up his soldiers and get them ready for battle so that they'll go in there and win the battle quickly and decisively. That's the entire not act 1, scene 1. So here we are, scene 2 with the tavern crew. On. To the breach. Bardolph says, pray thee, corporal, stay. The knocks are too hard, too hot, the battle's too hot. And for my own part, I have not a case of lives. I'm not a cat, right? I only have one life. The humor of it's too hot. And that is the very plain song of it, says Nym. So he's like, I don't really feel like going into battle. Pistol says, the plain song is most just, for humors do abound. Knocks go and come, God's vassals drop and die, and sword and shield and bloody field doth win immortal fame, he's singing, because he's most likely drunk. Boy says, would I were in an alehouse in London, I would give all my fame for a pot of ale and safety. So the boy says, I'd much rather be at home and safe than here in this battle. And Pistol says, and I, because he's drunk again, remember? If wishes would prevail with me, my purpose should not fail with me, but thither would I hie. And the boy starts singing with him, as duly, but not as truly, as bird doth sing on bough. So they're probably all inebriated at this point, unfortunately. And so, of course, they really don't want to go into battle because they're not brave men at all. Now, here comes Captain Fluellen. He says, up to the breach, you dogs, avant, get going, right? You cullions. He's calling them names because they're cowardly. Pistol says, be merciful, great Duke, to men of mold. So we're not great men. We're men of the dirt, right? Or not even dirt, mold. Abate thy rage. Abate thy manly rage. Abate thy rage, great Duke. Good Bawcock. Abate thy rage, use lenity, sweet Chuck. So he's using foolish language for someone who is in authority over him. So everybody, Nim says, these be good humors. Your honor wins bad humors. So they're not saying very nice things to their leadership. So everybody leaves, supposedly to the battle, but we're not sure they'll actually make it there. But the boy who was singing along with them and wishing he was back in England is now going to be a bit of a hypocrite. He says to Captain Llewellyn, as young as I am, I have observed these 3 swashers. I am boy or servant to all them 3, but all they 3, though they would serve me, could not be man to me. For indeed, their 3 such antics or jokes do not amount to a man. For Bardolph, he is white-livered and red-faced. So Bardolph is known by a very red face. That's going to be important a little bit later. By the means whereof he faces it out, but fights not. So he looks angry, but he isn't. And he's angry, but not for the battle. But for pistol, he hath a killing tongue, but a quiet sword. So he can kill people with his tongue, which means he's just very mean. But he doesn't kill anybody. He can't fight at all. By the means whereof he breaks his words, but keeps whole his weapons. So the only thing he works hard enough to break is his tongue. He never uses a weapon enough to do that. For Nim, he hath heard that men of few words are the best men, and therefore he scorns to say his prayers, lest he should be thought a coward. But his few bad words are matched with his few good deeds, for he never broke any man's head but his own, and that was against a post when he was drunk. They will steal anything and call it purchase. Bardolph stole a lute case, bore it 12 leagues, and sold it for 3 halfpence. Nim and Bardolph are sworn brothers in filching, and Calais they stole a fire shovel. I knew by that piece of service the men would carry coals. They would have me as familiar with men's pockets as their gloves or their handkerchiefs, which make much against my manhood, if I should take from another's pocket to put into mine, for it is plain pocketing up of wrongs. I must leave them and seek some better service. Their villainy goes against my weak stomach, and therefore I must cast it up. It's hard to say here if the boy is inebriated or if he's actually telling the truth and he was just playing around before to try to keep the favor of the tavern crew. So now we have 3 men who are all in leadership in the army. And we are very close to the end of our time. So I'm not sure I'm going to make it to the end of scene 2. But what you need to know most about these is that they're Scottish and Irish and Welsh. And so their speech is very thick with accent, and they're very difficult to understand. So basically what they are talking about for the rest of this, because I only have 2 minutes, so I'm just going to tell you what they're talking about and not really try to go through it very tightly. But they are talking about different battle strategies, and Llewellyn is one who likes more ancient ways, and the other 2 do not. They are more modern formats, and they are digging tunnels under the ground so that they can set off explosives underneath the walls of the city, and the city walls just fall down into these tunnels. And that was a plan that was often executed during this time, apparently. So they are discussing the merit of doing that. Of course, Llewellyn feels that it's much better to just hit something head on. That's more his personality. And so they are kind of arguing over what is best. But what you really need to know about these men is that they are kind of comedic relief for the audience. As difficult as it is for you to read these men's speech, it was just as difficult for the audience to understand their speech. And so this would have just been cause for humor, and they would have laughed and moved on. And their speech is not very important to the plot of the play. All right, I'm going to call that a day. Don't forget to comment on this reading and make sure that I get your initials or your name in your comment so that I can give you credit for watching my video today. All right. So I have added to these notes the summaries for prologue and scene 1 and scene 2. So you should find that in your notes. I will link it to this video. All right. I hope you have a great day, and I will be reading scenes 3 through 5 in the next video. Bye.